Hi, loves, and welcome to this bonus extra special summary of the Love After 35 email series. I'm so happy to have you here and thank you for tuning in. This is a little treat that I wanted to do just to round off our 6 days of inspiring and expanding stories for the Love After 35 email series, and to officially invite you all to come inside and join the Turning Coaching community. As you all know, I created this Love After 35 series when I knew how important it was for me as a single woman who was 35 and was worrying about timelines, who was thinking potentially I might not meet a partner in time to become a mother, and I was stressed. I felt truly left behind. I used this method of expansion, the being able to expand my mind to all the different possibilities that were before me in order to manifest my now husband. I know that this piece in my manifestation journey of really getting very clear on the fact that it can and will happen, and using that to help me build trust, faith, and also to not let go of a dream that had really died when I got out of my last big relationship and called off an engagement. I know that sometimes it's easy to go into a cynical headspace and to think it's never going to get better, or it just won't happen for me. All of those limiting beliefs that we often can get to when we've been single for a long time, or we're going on bad dates and we've still not met the person yet. And during that era, when I actually decided to switch things around, turn things around, the turn is the basis of all of my coaching. The Turning 30 brand and also the Turning community is all about how you can turn around your love life. And when I turned around mine, it was by looking at other women who stood before me who had also met their partners much later than they expected, but still had the family that they wanted and had the love story that was theirs, uniquely theirs. I know we're not copying everybody's stories, but it was just this amazing knowledge that just because it hadn't happened yet didn't mean that it wasn't going to happen at all. And that's where the Love After 35 email series was born from. And wow, I've had such an amazing response from all of you to the stories, and we've already invited in so many incredible women to the community, and I just hope that you will also join us there. As well as being an expansion method, looking at other women's journeys, I think it's even more than that, because in these stories, there are so many lessons, there are so many patterns and pieces of advice that you can take with you and integrate into your own journey to find love. And that's what I'm going to be breaking down today. I'm going to be talking about all of the common links, the common patterns that I see in the stories that I've collected. I'm going to outline them to you in a really simple and straightforward way so that you can integrate these into your journey to find love. And hopefully it will make this series not just about hope, but also a little bit educational. I want you to start off, and if you have a notepad, that would be really great if you could write it down, or maybe it's something you can journal on later. But I want you to think about this question. Was there a favourite story of Love After 35 that stood out for you? Was there something that you particularly resonated with? And in that, you can think about the stories that you have read. Was there a particular person that had a similar path to you and that's why you resonated? Was there something that she wrote that really felt familiar, or maybe something about her single chapter that felt like something you're currently experiencing? So I want you to just ponder that for a moment, and I invite you to question what it was about that story or her unfolding of events that's really stuck with you. Because I think that's sometimes the clue to the things that we need to do. When I say that, I mean the things that we need to work on, the things that we need to change or open ourselves up to can come from the things that really touch us, the things that wake us up, the things that resonate with us. So that's the first thing that I want you to consider. The last thing I will add before we dive in is that I have collected dozens of Love After 35 stories since I launched it almost 1 year ago. And in addition to that, as most of you know, if you have listened to my podcast before, that over the years of 6 years of doing podcast recordings, I have also collected many women's stories who have come onto the podcast to share how they found love later than expected. And also, just because of the nature of my job, I tend to have these conversations very regularly with clients who have found love, women interning who have found love, and also just people in my life who aren't even connected to my coaching world. So I would say that I'm a bit of an expert on the patterns of finding love after 35. So the things that we're going to talk about now, the lessons and the patterns that I see, come from a large sample, and it's the data that I really see. Of course, this hasn't been done in a scientific setting, but they're just patterns that I have seen from working in this space for 8 years. Let's dive in. So the first thing, and I feel like this is just a very important point of validation, is that all the women spoke about how hard it was for them before. There hasn't been one submission in the Love After 35 series, or one conversation that I've had that a woman has said, I didn't find it hard waiting for love, or I didn't find it hard when I was single and I wanted to meet somebody. Every single person said that they struggled in some way with feeling like it might not happen for them. Most of the women spoke in some format about beliefs, so the stories and the narratives that they collected along the way. For example, things like love was difficult for them compared to others. They could be successful in different areas of their life, but love was the thing that felt the hardest. They couldn't get into a relationship, and maybe they never would because they hadn't been in one before. So many women speak in the submissions about despair and a feeling of running out of time. And obviously, as I just mentioned now, there's always that constant comparison, that feeling of other people and especially friends who are doing things at a different. And I think another really common theme is being the last single friend or the only one who wasn't doing something. So that is definitely a pattern that I saw and I see. And also, I think another pattern here is just frustration, the emotion of frustration, specifically with the dating apps. So even the ones that went on to meet their partners on the apps, they still spoke about how they felt like whilst they were actually inside that dating app world, that it was very discouraging, very frustrating. They experienced rejections, they experienced a lot of mismatch. So the lesson to take from this, the reminder, is if it feels hard right now, that difficulty is not an indicator of it always being hard. It's not an indicator that means that you won't go on to meet a partner. And even more so, I just want to throw this out there. And again, this isn't scientifically backed up with any data, but I have a feeling that when somebody is finding love particularly difficult and the dating world just feels, very hard, and you're feeling jaded, I usually see that as a sign that a shift is coming. Mostly because women usually take this and actually do the work on themselves, but also in like a more spiritual way, there's a theory and manifestation of the dark that comes before you find the thing that you're manifesting. And I have found that to be true. Some of the most difficult and dark times I had when I was searching for love was just before Ellie and I met. So I just want to also remind you that a lot of the women spoke about it being particularly hard, and then they met their partner. The second lesson is that almost every story that I hear, that I read about, has some sort of random coincidence, something that you can't really explain. That I have read many stories in mine as well about the invisible string theory, which is where you have parallel paths and you can come in touch with your partner and then nothing happens and you come in touch with them again. And this feeling of there being almost like a divine connection or a divine force that is going on. And if you read through the stories, then you'll probably see that almost every story has this feeling that led them to do something. For example, oh, I was just about to go to move country and then I met my person. Or I was just about to cancel the date and then I thought, okay, I'll go anyway. I was just about to delete the apps and then I thought, okay, I'll have one more swipe. And it's almost these things that we just can't explain. It doesn't make sense why it would happen in that exact way. And it's that lack of logic that leads me to believe that there is so much randomness in love. I think there's so many things that are outside of our control, and we cannot discount the importance of serendipity because love isn't logical. And I don't think that it's true to say that love always finds us when we least expect it. I know some people have that version for themselves. However, I think that the pattern that stands out the most isn't that it happens when you least expect it, but the way that it happens is not how you expected it to be. That they think it might be one way or something will happen a specific way, something that they're used to, maybe a pattern that they're unlearning, and then it happens in a different way and it feels different, which links to a point in a moment. But what I do want to say is that I think that there's a lesson here of openness, of the fact that when it comes to divine timing, when it comes to the fact that we don't have full control over finding love, that the only thing we can do is to follow the breadcrumbs. So, for example, I loved the story of Jennifer's story. I think it was on day 3, how she was just about to quit her job and go away, move abroad. And then she met her partner in a work setting, and ended up that she's moving to the UK to be with him. And I think that the lesson is do the thing. Do the thing that you want to do. Go on that solo trip. Sign up to that course you've been meaning to do. Move country if that's something that's on your bucket list. Whatever it is that you're waiting to do, don't stop it because you are waiting for love to come. The opposite. Once you do it, it's those random positions that you put yourself in that open yourself up to the universe that will allow love to come in. And I think that's really important. And I also think that, and this is actually something that I speak about, that I teach in the first module of the Turning curriculum, which is the course that you get access to inside the Turning community, is that really work on trust that there are greater forces at work that we just don't understand how they work. And that was the piece for me that I did really connect to when I turned around my love life. It was almost devoting my trust to a greater force. And it sounds something maybe like something quite foreign maybe to you if you don't usually think this way, but I truly believe that turning out, zooming out, and looking at the fact that love and meeting somebody is going to happen in its own unique divine timing. And if you trust that timing and you're open and curious to it, then it's going to come your way. And I think it will come your way a lot sooner. The third pattern that I have seen in all of these stories is that almost every single woman is in action mode when she was single, doing things, building a beautiful single chapter, not just sitting around and waiting. And even some of the forums that I read said things like, I knew I couldn't just sit around anymore and wait for love to come. I knew I had to just go out there and make the most of this time. One of the submissions, I think Tina even said, I just knew I couldn't stay anymore in victim mode in my living room crying. I had to just go out there. And I think that's so true. And I'm not just talking about putting yourself out there dating. That's one thing. I'm talking about just going and living your life and building a beautiful single chapter that you will look back on as a gift. And almost every woman had built for herself a really incredible life. I think when you're in this waiting period, it can be frustrating to the point where you think, okay, I'll just wait to, quit my job and move country if that's what you're planning on doing, and to see if I will meet my person, or I will just wait to buy that piece of furniture that I really love because maybe I will move in with somebody next year and they won't like it. I know these are quite extreme examples, but I think it's really important to address the fact that a lot of people get into this like pattern of non-action taking, that feeling of like sitting back and thinking that it will just unfold, which I guess is a little bit opposite to what I was talking about trust, but the trust should take you to a place of activity, not a place of passivity, and not a place of just sitting back and saying, okay, universe, do your thing, bring the person to me. Absolutely not. And I think that's something that really comes out of all these stories, and I know this to be true, is that every single person who had a single chapter that they speak partly of, or a time in their 30s that they enjoyed being alone, they always did internal work. And that's going to link to the next point now. But I do want to say is that I think in order to practice openness, we need to connect more to ourselves. And to connect more to ourselves, we have to be open to doing the journaling and the deep emotional work, to learning, to reading lots of books, whether that is about love or and healing or about other things, doing some yoga, doing breath work, whatever it is. But I think the patterns I see the most is that when women do that work, it opens up a new connection with yourself, and that actually puts you in a much better position to start a relationship. And that links to the other pattern, number 4, which is that most of the stories of women meeting their partners are preceded with some form of self-development, whether that's a course, whether that's getting a coach, whether that's going to therapy, whether that's going on a retreat, whatever it is, it's opening yourself up to some ownership, taking responsibility for your life. And I think the pushback that sometimes I can hear on this is the feeling of, well, if my friend met somebody straight out of university and she never had to do any of this work, then why do I? And it can sometimes feel frustrating. And I think the answer to that always is, it's not a bad thing to do this work. It's gonna change you. It's going to heal you. It's an ongoing journey that isn't going to end before you meet your partner. But actually taking action steps and actually getting to know yourself, getting to meet yourself, learning to love yourself, being in self-worth is going to serve you well your whole life, no matter what your relationship status. And the truth is that when love finds us, it's never easy. I know that people might say, oh, it just clicked and things fell into place. I don't believe that's true. I think all relationships are mirrors, and they are going to affect you in some way. And the more work that you do on yourself now, the more it's going to benefit your future relationship. And if you ever are single again in the future, because love after 35, when it finds you, we all know the statistics. We all know that it might not be forever. And who knows all the different life paths we can take, all the different journeys that we're going to go on. Our 30s are young. We don't know what's going to happen in the next 30, 40, 50, maybe even 60 years. And doing this work is always going to be the foundation of a greater and deeper self-love. The 5th pattern that I often see is surrender, acceptance. The feeling of being single and finally feeling at peace with it. Now, not every story has this, but I would say quite a lot does. And I think it's a really important piece. I often speak about building a really solid foundation of which relationships can thrive, and the relationship with yourself also can thrive. And that isn't going to be built on feeling frustrated, feeling angry, feeling really like upset and grief. All of those things are really important to work through. We want to work through those emotions, but what's really important is that we finally accept that we are on a different timeline. We are meeting our partners at a different stage of life. Yes, some of our friends are already married with 4-year-olds. Some of our friends may even be on their 3rd child. Maybe you've become an expat living somewhere else, or you've had a huge career change. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. The point is that it's very important to accept and to surrender to the fact that this is your timeline. And the stories that I think resonate with me the most is that feeling of, okay, I'm still taking actions. I'm still really working on myself. I'm still actively, proactively looking for a relationship, and I'm not afraid to do that work. But I also accept that it will happen differently to how I imagined before, and I surrender to what's going to happen. I surrender to not knowing. I surrender to the lack of control and uncertainty that I have on my relationship. So the next pattern I see that I definitely resonate with myself, and those of you who have read mine and Ellie's story will know this very much to be true, is that many women, in fact, most women said the relationship felt different because it felt safe. And many even compared the fact that there was absence of huge fireworks and sparks flying everywhere and butterflies because it didn't feel as anxious as before. They felt more safe, they felt more secure, they felt listened to. Some stories did talk about a click, a specific moment when they just knew, and stories did say, I just felt those butterflies. So I'm not completely casting out that can happen. It definitely can. But that wasn't my story, and that's not many women's stories. I think the biggest thing here is just to know that if it is a slower burn, or if it feels safe and maybe a little bit boring, that actually is a really good sign. The last pattern that I see and that I want you to take with you is that every single woman, when she tells me her story, when I ask her, what advice would you give to the single version of yourself from a few years ago, or to a woman in my community who is single right now in her 30s and hoping to meet someone? She always, always, always says, just keep going. It will happen. There is nothing wrong with you. And mainly to just not give up. And that's what I want to leave you with today, that if there's anything that you take from this, it's knowing that even if it's hard, even if you're going on a huge journey with yourself, even if you think that you're doing all of the things to call in love, but you still can't find a partner, just keep going. Because I think the pattern that I saw a lot of the women saying, I really had gotten to the point where it felt like that was it for me. It felt like it wasn't going to happen. And they still went on that next date. They still listened to that little nudge. They still followed that breadcrumb. They still had that random moment, that serendipitous moment. So I want to leave you with that as the final one. And I also want to invite you to come inside the Turning community, linking back to the third point that I mentioned before about how every single woman has taken responsibility for herself, how every single woman has taken actions, gotten to know herself on a deeper level, done that healing work. And the point after that, where I said about getting a coach or doing a course, there is no shame. And that is why I created the Turning community, because when I was single at 33, 34, 35, I was up in arms trying to find a community. I was actually looking specifically for a coaching group that I could do this work and that I could be supported and I could meet other women, because it was crucial for me to be surrounded with women who felt the same. And that is why I created Turning, because I dropped about $5,000, $5,000 on a coaching program that was full of women who were incredible, yet they were just not my people. They were not in their 30s. They were divorcees, most of them. They were in their 40s plus. Many of them had children. They weren't worried about the timelines. They weren't thinking of fertility. They weren't wanting to learn about all of the things that I bring to the Turning community. And I think it's quite specific to be in this waiting area of your life in your 30s. For many of you, I know you might not have even had a relationship before or for many years. Also, many of you going through big breakups. We're talking about all of this inside Turning. You get so much, and it's a membership where you can either pay quarterly or you can do a monthly rolling subscription. I want to invite you to give yourself at least 3 months of doing this work, of coming in, meeting the other women, doing the Turning curriculum. We have endless guest workshops. You have live coaching with me, a 24/7 community group, and accountability challenges where at the moment we're doing a January journal challenge where we're sharing our journal prompts every single day. And there's just this feeling of unity and of knowing, of validation and support. And so many women who have been inside for almost a year now, it's almost Turning's first birthday in a few weeks, are already in relationships, and they're also sharing their journey alongside the single women, because the way the community runs is there's so much reciprocity. If Love After 35 has resonated with you, if you are reading those emails and you're thinking, oh, I want that to be me, or maybe you're thinking, one day I'm going to meet somebody and one day I'm going to be featured in Emma's Love After 35 series, if that is you, come inside the Turning community right now. We are waiting to see you inside. And thank you so much for being part of this Love After 35 email series. If you have any questions, then please feel free to reply to the email in which I sent you this, and I hope to meet you again very soon.